This evening, first up, two brothers, one journey, one devastating crash. Miguel and Mickel Daniels left Moruca headed for the Rupununi Rodeo and never made it. Tonight, a family and a community in mourning. Then cameras, radars, and electric tickets. Guyana's new smart traffic system has already collected more than $150 million in fines. Tonight, how it works and why authorities say it is just getting started. Plus, abandoned vehicles and spare parts are back on the old railway line in Kitty, and the Ministry of Public Works says owners have until 6 o'clock to move them or lose them. Meanwhile, a man with schizophrenia, unarmed and in police cell, shot at close range, his leg shattered, and now facing possible amputation. His family is demanding answers from the Guyana Police Force tonight. And Donald Trump floats pulling the United States out of NATO. As the Iran war deepens the transatlantic rift, tonight the questions on every ally's lips: is America walking away? Those stories and more coming up. Stay with us. Welcome to this broadcast of Channel 2's Headline News Update for April 2nd, 2026. I'm Bibi Bacchus. Thank you for joining us. First up, police are investigating a fatal three-vehicle crash that claimed the lives of two young men earlier this morning along Union Public Road, West Coast Demerara. Two brothers from Moruca Region 1, Barima Waini, 21-year-old Mickel Daniels and 23-year-old Miguel Daniels, who were occupants of one of the cars involved in the collision, are now dead. According to initial reports, the car they were traveling in was heading east at a reportedly high speed when the driver lost control, crossed into the opposite lane, and collided head-on with an upcoming minibus. A third vehicle traveling behind the minibus was also involved after swerving and striking the bus. Several persons, including drivers and passengers from the vehicles, were injured and taken to the West Demerara Regional Hospital. The two brothers were pronounced dead on arrival. Their bodies have been taken to a funeral parlor as investigations continue. Police have also obtained CCTV footage as part of the ongoing probe into the incident. Now on to a related development. The Guyana Police Force stated that Guyana is stepping up efforts to improve road safety with the rollout of a high-tech traffic monitoring system aimed at reducing accidents and enforcing road laws more effectively. The Guyana Police Force has been leading the implementation of the Safe Road Intelligence System, a technology-driven initiative introduced in April 2025 to modernize traffic enforcement across Guyana. The system utilizes cameras, radar sensors, and digital tools to monitor roads and detect violations, including speeding and dangerous driving. Offenses are automatically recorded, with details such as license plate numbers, location, time, and video evidence captured. A key feature is the e-ticketing system, which allows traffic tickets to be issued electronically via SMS, email, or mail, improving efficiency and transparency while reducing the need for manual enforcement. Motorists are also being guided by radar warning signs that display real-time speeds and alert drivers when they exceed limits, encouraging safer driving habits. Authorities say the system has already issued more than $150 million in tickets, with several drivers charged and some disqualified from driving. A demerit point system has also been introduced to penalize repeat offenders. Officials believe the initiative is a major step towards safer roads as it combines technology, enforcement, and public awareness to promote responsible driving nationwide. Staying with current events, a renewed push to clear public roadways is underway as authorities warn that abandoned vehicles and obstruction along the old railway line in Kitty will be removed by force if owners fail to act promptly. The Ministry of Public Works on Wednesday issued a removal notice after observing the return of derelict vehicles and spare parts on government reserves, despite a recent cleanup exercise in that area. Owners have been given a strict deadline to remove all encumbrances, failing which the ministry will step in to clear the obstruction. Officials noted that while the government does not intend to permanently seize property, owners will be required to pay the removal costs before reclaiming their items. The ministry is urging public cooperation, stressing that the initiative aims to keep roadways safe, clear, and accessible for all. Authorities say the enforcement will continue as part of ongoing efforts to maintain order and safety in public reserves, urging citizens to take responsibility and comply to avoid additional costs and penalties. Stick around when we return. Domestic violence survivors receive $300,000 grants to rebuild and empower their lives, and construction workers remanded over alleged sexual assault of 66-year-old pensioner.
Good girl forget things.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for do a surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road, Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lender's, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. A West Coast Berbice family is demanding justice after a man suffering from mental illness was shot while in police custody, leaving him with a shattered leg and facing possible amputation. The family of Steve Visos of Number 9 Village has accused ranks of the Guyana Police Force of excessive force, describing the incident as unnecessary and torturous. Visos, who has schizophrenia, was reportedly shot at close range while detained at the Blairmont police lockup. According to relatives, the incident began after he was taken into custody following reports of property damage linked to a psychiatric episode. Despite being unarmed, they claim he was beaten and later shot after attempting to leave his cell due to distress over conditions inside. Visos was rushed for medical treatment and underwent emergency surgery procedure to save his leg after doctors initially feared it might need to be amputated. Police have confirmed that an investigation is underway, but the family has raised concerns about delays and the lack of disciplinary action against the officers involved. They are calling for a thorough and transparent probe, insisting that those responsible be held accountable. In other news, a 28-year-old construction worker has been remanded to prison after being charged with the sexual assault of a 66-year-old pensioner during a terrifying home invasion in Blairmont Settlement, West Bank, Berbice. Rohan Mohammed, also known as Tonte, appeared at the Fort Wellington Magistrates Court, where he was not required to plead to the indictable charge of sexual penetration without consent, allegedly committed between March 27th and 28, 2026. It is alleged that a woman who had recently returned from the United States and lives alone was attacked late at night after the suspect gained entry into her home by removing window panes. Prosecutors told the court that she was threatened at knife point and subjected to a prolonged assault during the ordeal. The court also heard that Mohammed was previously known to the woman, having worked on renovation projects at her home. The police prosecutor strongly objected to bail, citing that the accused is a flight risk and has a prior history of breaching bail conditions. He also raised concerns about possible interference with witnesses. Mohammed denied allegations, claiming his brother may have been responsible, an assertion the prosecution disputed. Magistrate Hardy upheld the prosecution's objections and remanded the accused to prison. The matter has been adjourned to April 22, 2026, as investigations continue. The incident has left the elderly victim traumatized and has sparked renewed concerns about the safety of vulnerable residents, particularly older people living alone in rural communities. Moving on, 10 survivors of domestic violence in Guyana have each received $300,000 business grants to help them rebuild their lives and achieve financial independence. The support was provided through the Support for a Safety Net program, a joint initiative between the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security and the Inter-American Development Bank. Minister of Human Services and Social Security Dr. Vinay Prasad presented the grants at a ceremony held at the Humaniano alongside international partners. The recipients are part of a larger group of 54 women supported under the ministry's Sexual Offenses and Domestic Violence Policy Unit. Officials say the initiative aims to empower survivors by providing resources to start or expand small businesses, enabling them to earn a stable income and regain independence. The program also seeks to address domestic violence as both a social and economic issue, helping survivors move from vulnerability to self-sufficiency while contributing to their communities. The initiative underscores a growing commitment to not only support survivors of domestic violence, but also to empower them with the tools needed to rebuild their lives, break cycles of abuse, and secure a more independent and stable future. Don't go away after the break. U.S. Supreme Court weighs Trump's move to end birthright citizenship, and U.S. lifts sanctions on Venezuela acting president, opening door for assets control.
What's the problem, Granny?
I want money for borrow for those surgery. I was dancing and I fall and fracture my hip.
If you need some quick money, you should check Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop, Lot 238 South Road Border, Georgetown. Get jewelry made to order in just 72 hours. We also accept vehicles. Lenders, best rates, longest payback period.
Boys, I get through. Plus, I could dance again.
Lender's Jewelry and Pawn Shop.
Welcome back. Now we take a look at what's happening in the region and around the world.
Good evening. Tonight, the United States lifts sanctions on Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez, signaling a shift towards closer ties and economic cooperation. Protesters gathered outside the Supreme Court over birthright citizenship. Russia bans petrol exports, and President Trump raised the possibility of withdrawing from NATO. We will begin with Venezuela. The United States has lifted sanctions on Venezuela's interim president Delcy Rodriguez, marking a shift towards improved relations between the two countries. The move allows her government greater access to assets and engagement with U.S. businesses. Officials say it follows Washington's recognition of her leadership after the removal of Nicolas Maduro. Rodriguez welcomed the decision, calling it a step towards normalizing bilateral ties and boosting economic cooperation. Protesters gathered outside the U.S. Supreme Court as justices heard arguments on President Donald Trump's executive order to end birthright citizenship for children of undocumented migrants and short-term visitors. Al Jazeera's Patty Culhane reports.
Now would you shout?
Outside the Supreme Court, a sizable crowd loudly demanding the justices uphold what has been the law of the land since 1868. All babies born here are automatically American citizens. Inside the court, a first for the country, U.S. President Donald Trump, the first sitting president to be in the room while the justices were hearing arguments over his executive order to end birthright citizenship for the children of migrants in the country without documentation or people visiting.
Unrestricted birthright citizenship contradicts the practice of the overwhelming majority of modern nations. It demeans the priceless and profound gift of American citizenship. It operates as a powerful pull factor for illegal immigration and rewards illegal aliens who not only violate the immigration laws, but also jump in front of those who follow the rules.
After court, the president took to social media, posting, "We are the only country in the world stupid enough to allow birthright citizenship." That is actually not true. This map shows more than 30 other countries with birthright citizenship, including Mexico, Canada, Brazil, and Pakistan. After the hearing, the lawyers suing to keep universal birthright citizenship expressed optimism.
I am confident that the court is going to turn back this president's effort to radically rewrite our 14th Amendment rule of birthright citizenship.
Protesters will likely be back when the court announces that it's made a decision, but that's not going to happen very soon, at earliest likely in June. Patty Culhane, Al Jazeera at the Supreme Court.
The Russian government is imposing a complete ban on petrol exports. The decision is meant to prevent Russian petroleum producers from selling abroad. Al Jazeera's Yulia Shapovalova reports.
The increase in fuel prices due to the war in Iran has made foreign markets even more attractive for Russian petroleum producers. But to prevent a deficit on the domestic market prior to high seasonal demand and to stabilize fuel prices, the Russian government is imposing a total ban on all exports of gasoline from April the 1st. The restriction applies to all market participants, including large petroleum producers.
The ban, though, does not apply to petrol supplies under international agreements. Crude oil and diesel fuel exports are not banned either, even though these have been seriously affected by recent Ukrainian drone attacks on Russia's refineries and ports. Just last week, Ukraine struck the ports of Primorsk and Ust-Luga on the Baltic Sea, as well as the country's second largest refinery in the Leningrad region. The attacks partly limited Russia's ability to export oil and oil products. There is a fear now that the level of oil processing and exporting in Russia may decrease in the near future because of the damage caused.
This is not the first time the authorities have imposed a temporary ban on gasoline exports. The previous petrol export restrictions for small refineries were introduced in September last year against the backdrop of record growth in fuel prices and scheduled shutdowns of refineries due to continued Ukrainian drone attacks and the risk of seasonal product shortage in some regions. It was lifted at the end of January in order to avoid a surplus on the domestic market.
As petrol producers have to sell at lower prices inside the country, where prices are significantly lower than internationally, the government compensates them using its so-called fuel damper. But the measure is not helping to reduce the growing discontent among petroleum producers here, who say their expenses are growing by the day. Drivers on the streets of Moscow are also complaining.
I have been a taxi driver for a year, and in that short time, gas prices have gone up about 8% per litre.
Gasoline cannot get cheaper here, so everything else will get more expensive too.
Analysts predict that the gasoline exports ban can slow down domestic price growth, but it will not lead to a serious reduction in prices. And the external market situation will continue to have a negative impact on the Russian petrol market, even without the gasoline exports. Yulia Shapovalova, Al Jazeera, Moscow.
President Trump says he's strongly considering withdrawing the United States from NATO. His comments expose a widening rift in the transatlantic alliance over the Iran war. Al Jazeera's Rory Chadlands reports.
That Donald Trump has been souring on NATO recently is no secret.
They don't want to help us defend the strait, and they're the ones that need it. We're very disappointed with NATO because NATO has done absolutely nothing. I think a tremendous mistake was when NATO just wasn't there. They just weren't there.
That he's considering leaving the 77-year-old military alliance must now be taken seriously, following an interview with British newspaper The Telegraph. Oh yes, I would say it's beyond reconsideration, Trump said. I was never swayed by NATO. I always knew they were a paper tiger. And Putin knows that too, by the way. A genuine possibility, or Trumpian bluff to extort support for his war? That's the calculation leaders are having to make. This was the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
Whatever the pressure on me and others, whatever the noise, I'm going to act in the British national interest in all the decisions that I make. And that's why I've been absolutely clear that this is not our war, and we're not going to get dragged into it.
And from the French government.
Ça s'appelle la défense collective et la dissuasion aussi.
Let me remind you what NATO is. It is a military alliance concerned with the security of the Euro-Atlantic region. It is not designed to carry out operation in the Strait of Hormuz, which will be a breach of international law.
De l'espace euro-atlantique.
But European security would be shattered without US involvement. There is no NATO without the US, as the Polish defence minister admitted on X, though he added, there is also no strong US without its allies, without us. This memorial honours the British servicemen and women who fought in Afghanistan and Iraq, wars led by America but fought alongside its allies, NATO allies. So alliance members have a pointed reply to Donald Trump's criticisms. The only time the alliance's mutual defence clause was ever invoked was not to defend Europe, but to defend America after 9/11. Rory Challens, Al Jazeera in London.
Thanks, Dominique. This brings us to the end of our regional and global news coverage. Up next is this Radio Wet forecast. And that's it to TV2 Headline News for this Thursday evening. As we take our leave, we invite you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. We will be out for the weekend, but you can tune in on Tuesday 7 p.m. for more news. Until then, please take care of yourselves and each other and have a wonderful Easter weekend.